I believe these mics are hot now. Is that? All right. Thank you, Catherine. And wow, I mean, following a band, which, speaking of quantum physics, how did you fit a band of 60 people on stage? So, following the theme there from this morning. And then Dr. Sorrell, who's already gone because he's got so many things to do.
There.
Oh, well, there he is, following you again. And then Matthew Randazzo. I mean, the only thing that could make this okay for me to be up here is Commissioner Garcia. So I'm so glad that you are closing, because even as amazing as all those things are, you really take the cake. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Buenas tardes. It's a pleasure to be here. What a fabulous luncheon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Glaze Lyle, for the introduction. President Sorrell, it's always good. It's good to see your passion. And thank you for taking me as a friend in Facebook. Really appreciate it. And then to all the friends and partners that are here today that strive to make a difference every single day in all of communities. So es un honor y un privilegio estar aquí con todos ustedes. Thank you, Susan.
Muchas gracias.
It's great to be here.
Thank you. So let's start our conversation. Looking at your bio, which you all have in your program, you have such a history of community service. It's been integral to your whole life. And certainly in these last years, if you've represented our city and our county, but I mean, that's just part of you. So I am always interested to know, when I see somebody who's had such a life as yours, who influenced you? What influenced you to be so committed and engaged in civic life?
Well, I think it all comes from family. I mean, my father, my grandmother, my mother, strong women, a strong man. Always, my father was MD, a doctor, hematologist with the Mexican Army. So everything was direct, and we had to help. And then when I met Prince Charming, who happened to be from a place called Oak Cliff in Dallas, and somebody had to move, right? I had just graduated from dental school from La Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana in Mexico City, and he had just graduated from law school in Houston. And we have this conversation, who moves where, right? I say, Domingo, you have to come, to practice in Mexico. And he told me, Elba, you know how many Mexican lawyers are in Mexico City? But if you come over here, you know how many Latino dentists are in Dallas, Texas? And of course, this was 37 years ago, my friends. So I say, how many? And he say, 2. I say, oops, okay, wait a minute, Domingo. I mean, of how many people, right? And he said, well, at that time, they were around 20% Latino population. I said, okay, Oak Cliff, I don't know where are you, but I'm coming. And once I got here, of course, that everybody has a story. And the immigrant story is, I knew it was going to be challenging because I didn't speak English. So I knew my first thing I had to do was to learn the language, because once you learn the language, you learn the culture. And Dallas, Texas, here I am, and I'm very thankful, because when President Sorrell talked about education, opportunity, and equity, that's what colleges do. I started English 101 at El Centro College.
Wow.
So I'm a proud, and I was a dentist in Mexico, but I knew I had to go back to dental school, which didn't really appeal to me that much, right? Another 4 years of dentistry. So, but I knew I had to start somewhere, and I entered the dental assisting program at El Centro College. And the rest is history. Eventually, I got accepted into Baylor College of Dentistry, now Texas A&M, and graduated, and then I started working, and I wanted to make a difference. I started with Dental Health Programs, which is a nonprofit who serve underserved communities. And it's funny, guys, because I want you to tell this story, because it exemplifies, how education really opens the door of opportunity. I have just graduated. I was pregnant with my second son. And he was 9 pounds, just to put it in perspective. And I say, well, I really want to, before Fernando, that's his name, is born, have a job. So I apply and I say, nobody's going to hire me 8 months pregnant, Latina, immigrant. And I went in and I say, hey, I'm willing to work until my baby is born. And the first questions they asked me was, do you speak Spanish? Oh, can you hear this accent? Yes, it's my first language. And do you mind working in some of the Latino areas? And I say, hey, I would love to do that. You're hired. And that was my first job.
Wow.
So guys, when you hear that education is the key and opens every door, it is true. So take advantage of that education, Paul Quinn College, every opportunity that you have, don't let that door close on you. And then, hey, after that, once I start working as a dentist, who takes the kids to the dentist, especially pediatrics, then, moms. So you start learning, I start learning so much about the community, right? So mom, tell me what's going on. Oh, Dr. Garcia, the dogs, police response is very slow, code enforcement has not been here. So I start reading ordinances. Oh my God, so different from Mexico, right? And once I start learning, I start looking at the inequalities. Eventually, I start, working for campaigns, and I find out how to get services, a squeaky wheel gets the oil, how to get involved in neighborhood associations. I start working with the PTAs, I start working with chambers of commerce, and eventually somebody say, hey, you should run for office. I say, what? At this time I was a dentist, I had bought a practice, my 2 kids were growing, and I went home and I just told my family, hey guys, you're not gonna believe what somebody told me today, that I should run for office. And I remember my youngest son said, Mom, you will be perfect. You love to complain about everything. So, with that back and response, hey, why not? I start looking at the numbers. I start looking how, voting patterns were in the District 1 where I live, in Oak Cliff and North Oak Cliff and West Dallas. And guess what? I find out that a lot of people were like me. Latinos, Latinas, that women vote more than guys. And that they were as concerned as I was about the potholes, the dogs, the animal shelter, and, services, and of course, health, education. I said, why not?
Why not?
And here I am, even when people told me, and these guys, I want you to remember, people told me, Elba, are you sure? You're a Latina, right? Oh gosh, no, I don't. You are an immigrant, right? Oh no, I know. You have an accent, right? Oh no, I don't. Why don't you stay home and cook for Domingo and the kids? Guys, if you really want to do something, you're prepared, you have the education, and you really want to do it and want to do the difference, I want to tell you, you can do it. You just have to have the right connectors. And Paul Quinn College, your institution, your teachers, everybody that is here today will be there to help you if you ask. And don't ever be afraid to ask, because that's what changes people. And Ms. Lau just said, it works better when we're together, right? Talking to people, is the most important thing. Be respectful, listen, follow advice, and more importantly, be prepared. And that's what it took. That's how I got into office.
That's an amazing story.
You asked me how.
No,
that was a long story.
And Catherine said a legacy that you're setting is for young women, young men, lots of people, that you can do this. I'm interested to know a little bit about how your life, and you touched on it a little bit with your sons, but how has this influenced their opinion or their beliefs about women in public service?
Well, bless their hearts, right? I grew up with mom and dad, in politics. And there's some very good things about that, and there's some very low points on that. I remember when I have to go and explain the Trinity River Corridor to third graders, you know. So, I mean, that was definitely challenging. But at the same time, I think they have learned that everything has a process. I think, well, what can I say? I'm their mother. They're good men. They're good men, you know, that are very politically sensitive. They vote, and they're Democrats. Amen. You know, I mean, at some point, Domingo and I discussed that we probably were raising the best Republicans. No, I have checked that, and they are, you know, the apple of my eyes, and I thank them because their support. If I tell you how many doors they have knocked, how many blocks they have drive with mother, and now their eyes are a lot better than mine. So, Mom, you're in the wrong house. It's the next one, you know, and then go to the next block. So, you know, this street is faster, Mom. You know, I mean,
I know it all.
I could not do it without them and their support, because everything that we do in life requires the support of the people that love you and the support of your kids. If they have to say, no, Mom, get out, please. We're tired of all these discussions about politics or how we have to do it, I think I would get out. Yeah. But their support has always been there, and I thank them.
Well, they have a good mom and dad.
Thank you.
So do you think they'll ever run for office?
You know, Joaquin has said many times, I have two sons, Joaquin and Fernando. Joaquin has said, oh, heck no, I drive you, but please do not. You know, but Fernando has shown some interest sometimes. You know, sometimes says, well, Mom, I don't know that I want to be in the microscope, but, you know, you know, he has never closed that door. Yeah. So we'll see.
There are a few families around in Texas that have that kind of legacy. Yeah, you know, I've heard of one or two.
And we've been attacked for that.
So we've talked a lot, and I know you know this too. This morning, our focus of bigBANG is regenerative economy. And empowered participation in particular is one of the things that we've talked about is that all people are valued for their unique contributions, and there's continuous investments in human capital. And the system works organically when it's going bottom to top rather than top down. And I've watched your work as a commissioner and in life, and I think that really embodies the work you do. But I wonder if you'd talk a little bit more about how you engage the community to really drive the work that you do on behalf of all of us.
And that is one of the most challenging things for public servants. The reality is we are used to get news that are negative news, right? How many times you say, oh my God, I mean, I just feel down after I hear the news. I wish there was a good news channel that we can watch, because I know the work that you do. Everybody, all the organizations that are part of SBP, I mean, they're fabulous organizations. And then again, a lot of times that good work is not what we see first. But engagement, opportunity, and more importantly, the right information is crucial. And you asked me for examples. Susan, I mean, one of the things, for example, that I got to work in the height of the pandemic was how important vaccination was. How important and sometimes how complicated it was for people. We take for granted that everybody has a computer or a phone and they know how to get an appointment, but it was not. You know, so get it in the community, having all those drives where you are in contact with people and teaching them, you know, giving the dignity that requires to get something as simple and as a vaccine. You know, during the census, you know, and I know a lot of the organizations that are part of this group, we went through that, right? How do you tell people that the next 10 years are going to be based on people, you know, getting counted as the census? Right. And when we cannot go door to door, when we cannot have all these big events. So that was challenging. We put $2 million just in social media, in TV, radio, everything we could to let people know, hey guys, if we don't count ourselves, we're leaving billions of dollars in the federal government for schools, roads, infrastructure, education, health. and we can't leave it there. Well, I remember making, meetings with our partners. We did a parade in Oak Cliff with lowriders. Hey, whatever it took, right? Bring your mask and let's go ahead and, register for the census. In the meantime, the federal government was saying, but if you are undocumented, you should not be counted. Oh my God, make my job easy, right? So we have to do a big campaign in Spanish and other languages, to be sure that they knew it was important for them to get counted. So information, delivery of information, and that's why you are so important. And all our partners did a fabulous job doing that communication.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Representation matters so much. But if you don't know that,
you don't have the right
information is power.
Mm-hmm.
And the right information is really power. Wrong information is power sometimes too. So another basic tenet that we talked about from regenerative economy is really, and I said it before, is the lowest possible denominator in terms of control. And oftentimes, I think sometimes people get the idea, if they're not in the know, is that really the powers that be, maybe at the federal government or even at the state government, have the most control over our lives. But honestly, most politics is local. So that's one thing. But there's this interesting dichotomy these days, where I kind of like to sometimes, and I didn't make this up, I stole it from somebody, I'm sure, the difference between local control and controlling locals. That seems to be kind of a pervasive theme in these last few years. I wonder if you'd talk about that a little bit.
Well, what can I say? If it was probably up to the state government, we wouldn't even exist, right? I mean, local control, they have done a lot of things to control. I mean, one of the things that we all know is we've been capped of the amount of money that we can keep at the local level. They have, changed a lot of the laws when it comes to voting, for example. Taking away a lot of the rights of the most important constitutional right that we have, which is our voice and our right to vote. And then, of course, it's happening at the federal level, too. You see with the overturn of Roe versus Wade, with a lot of the new laws that are coming about gun control. I mean, we all know, it's not about guns. It's about a sensible gun laws to prevent the massacres that we're seeing. But definitely, we need to continue to understand and let people know that, like you say, everything starts locally, right? And people ask me all the time, I say, why do you say that city government is one of the most important ones? It's very easy, right? When you wake up in the morning, and I know I'm a dentist, I know that the first thing you all do is brush your teeth. So you open that water faucet, who controls that? The city. You go and pick up your newspaper, who's the sidewalk? The city. You need an emergency, fire, police, who controls that? The city. You go to work out to your rec center, the city. So from the moment you're born and you get the birth certificate, the city, and the moment we die, because you're the county, right? If you need help, county government. If you are, God bless you, in a bad accident, Parkland, health, criminal justice, courts, the county. Your state legislature is key for us to be able to implement the laws that the legislature passes. So get to know your representatives and hold us accountable. Mm-hmm. Because how many times, and I'm not saying that our congressmen and our, senators and our president are not important. They are. But the reality is, who do you see in your neighborhood association meetings? Who do you see when taxes come around? Who do you see when there's a health crisis? All your local government. But when we go to vote, where are they? All the way at the bottom of 20 pages, right? I always tell people, don't forget, we're in the last page. Vote for us, right? So some of the things about local control, the legislature 2 sessions ago tried to pass a bill where municipalities and counties will not be able to have representatives talking to state legislatures, the government, or the government. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? And we only have one person lobbying for Dallas County, guys, by the way, okay? It's not like we're going to overwhelm anyone. The city of Dallas, I believe, has 3.5. I think Houston has like 10. But even if you put the 254 counties in the state of Texas with one person each, it's 250 people. Please don't tell me we're going to overwhelm you.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important that the voice of local control continues to be loud and clear. It's about equity, it's about justice, and it's about regenerating the services that we need. Unfunded mandates, that's our most important voice every 2 years. How much is it going to cost me to provide the services that my constituents need in Dallas County without money? If they don't send me the money every single time they pass a new bill, hey guys, I mean, I hate to use the tax word, but how am I going to pay for it? And I have to say, I can say this clearly and on the record, most cities and counties had either keep their tax rate or reduce it. Dallas County has the lowest tax rate in 11 years and one of the lowest in the state of Texas of the big cities. But then again, you know, every time we only can keep 35%. The rest goes to the state, to that rainy fund that, well, for me it's always raining, you know, but I never seen too much
Seems to have never rained in Texas.
Yep. Yeah. Literally, and actually we can go through a freeze too, but I don't want to get too much into those politics.
Yeah. So thank you. So one last question, and you know, and you've said this several times, Commissioner Garcia, but challenge us. Tell us what we as advocates, as students, as community members, as business leaders, as philanthropists, what can we do to help maintain that local control, to help you do your job, to make sure also that those who oftentimes voices are not heard or not engaged, how do we make sure that we're engaging everybody that should be engaged, which honestly is everybody? The
most important thing, guys, is voting. I mean, register to vote and vote. You know, we all know that when people don't vote, you just give your voice to someone else to elect who we have. You know, bad people get elected by good people that don't vote, right? I mean, so getting out and make your voice being heard, su voto es su voz, is true. You know, get involved in the community. Yeah, when we hear about taxes, we all know that when we get that tax, beautiful love letter that the tax assessor sends us, what is the most expensive part of your tax bill? Education, schools. And we know how important that is, right? But if the state, really all the politicians that say, and we are working to lower your taxes, okay, I'm glad they are. But if they just pay for education, those $900 on our tax bill, guess what? They just save us $900 in our tax bill, right? So cover education, and guess what? Our tax bill goes immediately down. Health. You know, when we talk about health, when we talk about education, when we talk about opportunities for a better quality of life, it's about voting, because we need to have the resources. Mental health. We all know how important mental health is. When you have a jail of about 6,000 people, of which almost 50% are people of color, and they have mental issues. You know we have a problem, right? You know that our criminal justice system is broken and it needs to be fixed, and that people should not be in jail. They should be getting the resources and getting the services, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, you know, that will get them to get well and back into our society. They shouldn't be in jail. Get involved, vote, Get involved. Neighborhood associations. You know who you live with. You know what they think. You know where we're going. You know, well, neighborhood associations right now, Dr. Garcia, I mean, I really don't want to do that. Okay, you don't want to do that? Volunteer, serve in a board of commission. The city of Dallas, Dallas County, have plenty of opportunities for people to serve in a board and a commission and get to see the problems firsthand. Juvenile services, you know, when you talk about historic preservation, when you talk about voting, when you talk about almost everything, there's a position for you. Oh, Dr. Garcia, I don't want government. Oh, okay, let's go to other organizations. You can volunteer with the United Way, with El Concilio, with so many organizations. Oh, Dr. Garcia, no, I don't want a nonprofit. Okay, the city of Dallas, the library, you know, the animal shelter. People, our communities, our society is dying, is thirsty of young people to serve and get involved. So voting, know your neighbors, get involved, you know, and of course, you know, do something for your fellow, you know, your fellow citizens. We all have needs. When I was in the city council, I thought that the needs were mainly urban. You know, well, the city of Dallas is a big city. You know, now as a commissioner, the Lord has given me the opportunity to work with many different ways of living and thinking. And guess what? The needs continue to be the same, no matter where you go. So, and at the end of the day, no matter where you come from, no matter where your background, no matter how you feel about any political party, we all want the same thing. You know, a good education for our kiddos, for ourselves, you know, good health, and a better future for us. And that's why the regenerative economy is so important, because on top of that, we have the opportunity, you know, to make a difference with the environment, something that I'm very proud to, you know, include, because when I got elected to the Commissioner's Court was one thing that was missing. I didn't see a long, you know, plan, long-range plan for our environment. And we're all in this together, guys. You know, so in all the consolidation that we have done in Dallas County, I mean, my biggest objective has been that all our new buildings, and by the way, if you haven't gone to our records building, it's the biggest renovation of historic preservation in the history of Dallas County, and probably one of the biggest in the state of Texas, with a LEED certification, as well as the first government building that has a WELL certification, which means how people feel when we are under natural light, and we're more productive and more engaged with other human beings, and sustainable, recyclable materials, and, you know, minority participation, the highest we have had. So very important that, you know, continue to do what you do best, and is bringing people together. I'm very honored to be here today. Thank you to you, to everyone. You know, Tony, you know, I can never say no to you, and to President Sorrell, you know, tampoco. So with that being said, honored to be here.
Are we so fortunate to have you, your energy, your compassion, your commitment, and all that you do for our community. And what an example. And you know what I'd say is, I hope that your words have resonated. I know they've resonated. I've looked at people's eyes, and go out there and do something. Vote, get engaged, find out what you can do, because we can all do something. And that's what it takes. As Catherine said, we're all in this together. We got one world, one planet. We're all in this together. And all of us have the opportunity, as well as the responsibility, to drive that change. So thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Dr. Garcia.